Welcome back to the Wrong Advice Podcast. I'm your host, John Picciuto, and I'm super excited to have my LA-based friend, Rebekah Kennedy, on the line today. Rebekah, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. How are you?
Of course, I'm doing great. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, like you said, I'm Rebekah Kennedy. I'm an actor. I live in Los Angeles. And yeah, today I guess we're gonna talk a little bit about that and life and happiness and all the good stuff.
Absolutely. So obviously prior to us like hooking up and getting on this podcast, and we've been Instagram friends for quite some time, but in anticipation of this episode, I took the liberty to check out your IMDb page, and my goodness, you certainly are an actress. You have worked in a lot of things.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Explain to me kind of how you got your start, how you like got into acting, how, you know, your career has like expanded and morphed, and where are you at today in terms of like what your goals are and how things are progressing for you with regards to your career.
Yeah, so I started acting when I was young. I was about 12 years old when I first started doing plays and, you know, children's theater groups. I'd wanted to act for a really long time, since I was about 4, is when I first expressed an interest in it. And my mom at the time, you know, because I was 4, was kind of like, you know, we were busy with other things. I had an older sister that was doing a lot of things, and I was doing, you know, other things. And my mom was kind of like, this, I don't know, I don't know about this. So I kind of kept bugging her. And then finally, when I was 12, I didn't make the cheerleading squad at school, which was devastating at the time.
Oh, no.
I know, right? All my friends were in it, and that's really why I, you know, tried out. But I guess I was too quiet or something, which is ironic now. But I didn't make it. So finally, my mom was like, and I was just devastated. I didn't know what I was going to do. My mom was like, all right, let's try this acting thing. So she found like a local children's group that, you know, rehearsed like once a week for a musical that we did in the summer. So she's like, let's start with this. Let's see, you know, because sometimes people want to be actors and then they start doing it and they're like, this sucks. Like, I hate this.
Yeah.
So, you know, especially kids, we tend to change, you know, as you know, change what we like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So she wanted to make sure there was actually something that I wanted. So they had already kind of had done auditions, already been rehearsing for the musical. We did The Music Man as the first one, but they were very kind to kind of just let me come in. And so I was in a lot of the ensemble numbers, and they kind of just put me in where they could. And my mom said that when she dropped me off the first day, she came back to pick me up a little early and was kind of staying in the back. I didn't know she was there. And she said she saw my face, and she's like, oh, this is it. Like, this is where we're going to be. And so I did theater growing up, started auditioning for shows when I was a little bit older. Didn't really think too much about film and TV. I had, you know, when I was in my teens, I kind of wanted to do it, but I'm from Texas originally, and so I didn't, especially at the time, the industry was not what it is now. Didn't really know a lot. We just didn't know. We didn't really know how to get started. And theater is, you know, much different. You know, show up to the audition. You don't have to have an agent. Anybody can audition, you know, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like, you know, film and TV, you have to have an agent, you have to be submitted, you have to be picked. There's just a whole, you know, lot more process to it. So I just kept doing theater. I went to an arts magnet school in Dallas for dance and for acting. And then I went to college for musical theater, and I had every intention of moving to New York and doing that whole scene. And after I graduated from college, which I went to school in Florida, I came back to Texas to kind of figure out what I was going to do. And I, you know, kept doing theater. I was teaching as well at like a theater company, and also doing musicals and plays as well. And I met my now husband, but then, you know, just for dating. And, you know, friends said to me like, hey, I know you expressed interest in, you know, doing film and TV. Do you want some help? And I was like, yes, I would love some help. So I started just submitting to anything I could find, like short films, student films. I did some background work. That same friend referred me to his Louisiana agent at the time, and they took me on, you know, despite not having I didn't have much film and TV experience at the time, but they were generous and then took me on and started sending me out for auditions. And then I got married in 2009, and then 2010 was kind of the year that I decided, okay, I'm gonna maybe put theater on the back burner for a while and just focus on film and TV. And that's the year I did House Hunting and Season of the Witch with Nicolas Cage and Creature, and so things kind of just took off from there. So, and I haven't looked back. And then eventually I moved to LA, where I live now. And so it's a kind of a short story for a long journey.
I know that's super incredible. I mean, I would say not all, but I don't know, a fair amount of people probably wish that they could be an actor or an actress and follow, that kind of pattern of being a childhood, hobby, someone who does something for fun just because, like you said, you didn't have luck of making the cheerleader squad, and then it turns into this thing that you absolutely love. I would imagine.
Thank God I didn't. Because if I had, we would not have pursued this. Maybe not till later, or maybe at all.
I was just saying, I'm curious if any of your roles have been centered around cheerleading at all.
I had one.
Oh, that's so funny.
Early on, when I lived in Texas, I did a film called The High Schooler's Guide to College Parties, and it was about, basically these two high school guys that are trying to have this college party, and I played my credit in the movie, which, I wanted a real name, but they just thought it was too funny, was the slutty cheerleader. And I wasn't really slutty as much as I was just like crazy.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, that's the only two that I've played. Probably the only one I will now.
That's funny.
It's probably not going to happen anymore. But I got to live out my high school or junior high dreams a bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty awesome. It's like, talk about coming full circle for sure. Obviously, you have a extremely difficult career. Like, there's no question that I would think, although it's like the gem of careers, like everyone wants to be a famous actor, everyone wants to be a famous actress, the amount of work that goes into building your craft and a work of, like a resume and a book of business, or well, I say book of business because I'm in sales, but like a resume and a career, that is something that's probably inherently extremely difficult. Talk to me kind of about some of like the trials and tribulations that you've had in the industry. I mean, you've worked on some incredibly popular, famous shows, and you're still going. It's like something that you're still actively doing. And I wonder, like, you probably audition a lot and you probably get turned down a fair amount and you get accepted to a lot of roles. So tell me kind of what your process is like in terms of prepping for an audition, and like kind of what happens when you get it or you don't get it, and like how you either like adapt or reorganize yourself based on that like success or failure.
Awesome. Yeah, these are great questions. If I missed anything that you covered, just let me know and I'll circle back to it. As actors, we talk a lot about, like, which I just did, going from this project, and then I did this, and then I, was able to do this, but we kind of miss the stuff in between that's really hard, which is the, hundreds of auditions that you don't book, in between the things that you do. We definitely tend to highlight more of the success and don't want to talk about the failure. And it's not even failure really, because I hate even using the word rejection, because it's not personal. Only one person can play the role, and the director, producer, network, or whoever may just have a different vision that is not you. And it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong, that you're not a good actor, that you're not good enough. It's just film and TV is a visual medium, for sure. And so if you don't, they're like, oh man, I envision them with blonde hair, and this other actor has blonde hair, and that's kind of it. There's nothing you can do about it, right? I think, I moved from Texas, which is a very smaller market, to a very large market. And the transition was definitely not easy, for sure. I went, from auditioning quite a bit in Texas, several times a week, because there aren't that many casting directors there. Once everyone knows you, you're kind of in. So you're just, you're auditioning until you book the next thing. Whereas here, there are hundreds and hundreds of casting directors. And when you make the move, even if you have credits, which, I did, they don't know you, right? Because you booked the with a local casting director or whatever. So it's kind of starting over. You're starting over and you're getting to have your, put your name out there. And it can be harder here to get representation, to get good representation, to get, an agent or a manager that really understands you and wants to fight for you and, understands and sees the career that you see as well. That can take time as well. So, just giving myself time, looking back now, it's like there were many, many moments, and there still are sometimes, for sure, frustration and tears, and it's like, why are things not happening faster? And that just takes time. It just does. And it kind of takes as long as it takes. There's no timeline. Everyone's different. Some people are going to move here and in a year be famous on a show, and they're, that's it. Others, it's going to take 10 years, if not more. Most cases is going to be the latter, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Most celebrities you see are not
overnight.
Ones that just popped off the bus overnight. They love to put out the articles, overnight success, and you look back at their IMDb and it's like they've been working for 12 years.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's overnight from the one thing that they did that everyone liked. It's like the overnight from the one thing that went viral, or overnight from the one role that really broke their career. But yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's never, I just, started acting yesterday and now I'm famous.
Right.
Or if that does happen, sometimes those careers are short-lived. They're not ones that have sustainability for, 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, it's like the one-hit wonder in the music industry.
Right. They have the one song that comes out that everyone loves, and you're like, what happened to fans?
It's funny. I was just got an alert. So apparently Apple Music has started giving me recommendations, which I never noticed before. But I probably play the song One Headlight by the Wallflowers once a month, maybe once a week. It's just one of my favorite songs. And they just came out with an album for the first time in, I'm going to say 20 plus years. And it's a good example of, even if you are a one hit wonder, it's never too late to keep doing the thing that you love and putting out more great stuff.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, I've always wondered about actors because I did the play thing as a kid. I never really got into it when it started butting up against like sports and practices and games and stuff. I made a clear decision to go, my passion was more centered around the sports arena for my life. I've always wondered, you've played a lot of different characters. So when you're working in a scene where you need to be like extraordinarily happy or extraordinarily sad, what goes into like manipulating your own emotions to like exude whatever that scene or role is requiring? So like if you're playing a sad role, do you need to be sad in that moment, in that day? Is it something that you can just kind of turn on and off? Like, how does that work?
That's a great question. Yeah, every actor is going to have their different process, and every role is going to require something different. Like you said, I've played a lot of different characters and a lot of dark, kind of sad, emotional, addicts to homeless to victims, and those are usually far away from, thankfully, my own experience in my own life.
Yeah.
Thankfully, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's more of doing the homework before I get there. So, before I'm on set, or before I do an audition, like I can take, Esther, for example, from Law Order SVU. Because I know you asked a little bit about auditions before.
Mm-hmm.
When I read that script initially, I don't know why. I just was like, I connected to her so fiercely, and I was like, I don't know why, because I've not experienced anything that this young woman has. But for some reason, I just felt very protective of her and wanted so badly to be able to tell her story, because I think it's one that needed to be told, and wanted to do that justice. So when I take something like that, I'm like, okay, this is so far from my life. I try to look and see what I can relate to. So, I can't relate to having neglectful and abusive parents, but I can relate to like feeling lonely and being lonely and feeling trapped and feeling like no one sees you, those kind of things. So while they're not necessarily as intense feelings as feelings of abuse, it doesn't matter because the audience will interpret what they want to interpret, right? So all I need to do is the homework of it, figuring out, who I am, what do I want, things like that, basic actor questions, figuring all those kind of things out. And then when I'm on set or in the audition, especially on set, I try to let all that go, and I'm not worrying about, in the moment I need to feel this, in the moment I need to feel that. As an early actor, it's funny because I still work with an acting coach, and he actually brought this up this week. He's like, when you first came to me, you felt very much an obligation to feel something in a certain moment of a scene. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, she needs to feel sad here, so I have to feel sad. Whereas he's like, now you don't. You let all that. You have let all that go. And if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Sometimes it'll happen in different moments. That's the beautiful thing, right, about editing is they can take movements and make them. It's like I'll watch a scene. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That reaction was to something different. Mm-hmm. Like they used it here because it fit better here or whatever. They can make that all happen, which is beautiful. And that's the goal, is then to just pay attention to my partner and to be able to play and not feel any obligation to feel anything, because really we want the audience to feel, right, not us. Mm-hmm. It's funny because you'll watch a scene in class, for instance, and they're like, oh man, like I just did not feel it at all, and we're all like, oh my god, what? Like we felt everything. Like it doesn't matter at all actually what we feel. Actors, we want the experience, we want to feel something, but it really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter as long as the audience does.
That's a really interesting perspective, especially, I'm glad you mentioned the character of Esther on SVU, because I watched that. I'm not a big Law and Order person, but obviously because you shared that you were going to be on the show, like I saw it and I watched the clips and like, holy shit. I mean, that was like powerful stuff. Like that felt real. Like, I mean, listen, I don't know you professionally. I haven't seen everything that you're in, but like having known, your bright side of like, our Instagram interactions, and you're just like super happy and peppy and like just a light. I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is nuts. And that's really what informed that question, because, it is such a turn from what like I thought of you as a human being to play, polar opposite of that. And I was just so mesmerized and impressed that it is very interesting to hear that maybe you don't think you're nailing it in the moment, but people are around you are like, holy shit, that was awesome.
Thank you, by the way. I really appreciate that.
No problem.
It's a weird thing. For whatever reason, I'm drawn to these characters, and I don't really know why, other than just wanting to tell their story. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like that when I filmed in New York. I live in LA, so I was there for 2 weeks by myself in like a hotel room, which helped, a lot in terms of just kind of staying in that mindset of like, eating dinner was something precious because she didn't get to do things like that.
Yeah, wow.
It's like all that stuff kind of informs the character. And then, like I said, when you're on set, you're playing, you just play, you just react. And Kelly and Mariska, everybody's, especially Kelly, because I worked with her the most, was amazing, and just kind of going with whatever we did, even if it wasn't scripted, which some of the stuff wasn't. We just both went in the moment, whatever came up.
So a lot of that was ad lib?
So the lines weren't necessarily, like the lines were all in the scripts. They're definitely very,
so it's like the manner in which they're delivered, right?
Right. But as far as like some of the physical gestures and stuff that we did,
that's up to you to kind of perform.
Yeah, it was
That's
not.
cool.
And they, we kept it all in, which was great.
That is cool.
So it's a really interesting question, and it's definitely an interesting process, and I am one that likes to let it go once I'm done, like once I'm wrapped. I'm not method actor that's like in character 24/7. I think I would go nuts for me playing those kind of roles. Plus, I coming in as a guest, I don't want someone to be like, wow, never ask her back. She's super weird.
Listen, I think you work in probably one of the most glamorized and cool industries in general. Like, it's cool. People get to play pretend for life. But to me, like, a lot is made of people who go method actor for roles, and it seems a bit pretentious to me. Like, I understand Daniel Day-Lewis takes his craft extremely seriously, but I don't think if you're filming a movie for 6 months that you need to walk around thinking you're Abraham Lincoln for 6 months. That's just, like, to me, feels incredibly pretentious. And he is a multiple Oscar winning actor, so far be it for me to judge him, but it just seems like an odd choice, considering you spend, I don't know, maybe 8 to 9 hours a day or whatever it is playing a role. It's not something I think you necessarily would need to carry with you beyond that day's worth of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's different for every actor. I can't speak. I mean, if you're leading, if you're the lead of a studio feature, I guess you have to do what you got to do to, and
sure.
Everyone's, everyone's
$200 million on the line.
like I said, like I definitely consider, when I'm coming in as the guest, it's like, feels like you're coming in as the guest at like Thanksgiving. This is not your home.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good attitude.
I want to be as pleasant and as kind and as easy to work with as possible, while also obviously doing my job. And especially that show, and Criminal Minds was great too. They work, every episode is so heavy that they know when actors need time, and they don't, they let you have your time. Like, if I was standing in the corner, facing the corner, doing something, they like left me alone. Like, they're like, okay, she's in her whatever moment. They were very kind and cautious and be like, okay, Rebekah, whenever you're ready, like, we're ready for you. They knew that, like, I need that time. But then at lunch, I'm gonna be myself because I'm human first. Yeah, right. And I want them to be like, oh yeah, she was great to work with. Let's definitely have her back at some point. Probably not obviously not on that show because I'm dead. But those people are
could have a twin sister, right?
Yeah, of course, a ghost. I don't know. But yeah, no, those are great questions, because it is a weird process, especially when you're playing such dark, crazy material like that.
For sure. Obviously, you've worked on some pretty incredible shows, which are primetime television, network TV. Is there a role or a performance that you are most proud of? SVU to me comes to mind, Criminal Minds obviously as well. Is there a particular role, and it doesn't have to be TV, it could have been a movie, it could have been a theater project. Is there something that you've done that you are especially proud of from your working experience?
Yeah, I mean, all of my experiences have been awesome, which I'm, definitely blessed to be able to say that. And I've loved playing every role I've gotten to play so far has been unique and has added to my learning and growing as an actor and as a person. I think definitely SVU is up there as one of my top, just because Criminal Minds was similar as far as she was a victim and that had been locked in a basement, but as they do. But this felt like I worked all 8 days. I got, I don't know, it felt like a different experience, as well, like being in a different city and state. And I don't know, I was just really wanted to do her justice. And so I was just not saying like, oh, I'm so proud of my performance, but just proud of that I took some risks in there, and that I did some stuff that wasn't in the script physically, and that they kept it all, which was awesome.
I think there's a lot in that performance to be proud of. It goes without saying.
Thank you.
And I consume a shitload of TV and movies. I watch pretty much everything. So I think probably part of it was because, like I said, I have this vision, and like even your voice, it's like you're so light, you're so airy, so sweet. And then I was like, oh my God, where is this coming from? I'm gonna link some YouTube clips or I don't even know if I could get like the show clips so people know what we're talking about. And honestly, I've got a lot of friends who watch SVU religiously. I just happen to not be one of them, but it was heavy.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I did a podcast with some guys, and they finally came out to LA, and I met them for coffee, and they were like, "We really weren't sure what we were going to get." And we're like, "When we met you," I was like, "Okay, well, I mean, I guess that's
that's good.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, that is a compliment.
Some people are convinced that I'm one thing, and then they meet me and they're like, "Wow, you're not at all what I thought you would."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of the conversations that I have on my podcast are centered around confidence and what gives someone the either desire or the cojones to do something that they want to do in life. And like for me, that was like starting my podcast. That was me starting my journey with photography. Obviously, you have a job where you're basically tested on a daily and or weekly basis to get roles and jobs. So I would imagine confidence factors in heavily in what you do on a daily and weekly basis. What gives you confidence, and what inside of yourself and or over your experience has either been able to increase the level of confidence that you have in yourself and your work and or maybe hindered it to some degree?
Gosh, I feel like I'm still working on it sometimes. I mean, like we talked about earlier, there's so much not rejection, but like redirection. I'm trying to say that, and I know in my heart it's not personal, right? Like it's nothing to do with you or your performance or your audition or whatever. But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes when you really want something or you've been through the process of, when you spend months auditioning for something, you get very, very attached to it. It's hard not to be, even if you say like, oh, I know this isn't mine. It's not mine until it's mine, but it's still hard. And so that sometimes can be a little bit of a kicker, not on your skill as an actor, but just as you want it, you want to work. And so those kind of things, sometimes I have to check myself. Like it's not my self-worth. This job is not going to define me as an actor, as a person.
I would imagine I was going to say, I would imagine at times that might be, difficult because, obviously you've had some huge wins. You've had some really successful roles and, on major projects, but, you can't book everything. So it's arguably you're probably being rejected more often than you are being, given a role. So how are you able to maintain that like positivity and that confidence in your abilities when, I read something recently, and I don't want to misquote the statistic, but it was about acting, and it was about how like you get denied like 1,000 to 1 or something. It was some crazy number, and I was like, Jesus, how does anyone tolerate that?
It's hard.
Yeah.
I think for me, staying in class, I'm in class when I'm not working, if I can, and that helps so much because every week I just get to do what I love, and there's no judgment as far as like, am I going to get this part right? There's no like, oh my God, I have to do it this way because I have to get this part, or I have to make them love me or whatever. There's none of that. I just get to show up and like play with my partner, and you get constructive criticism, and then you get told what went right and what you can work on, but there's no pressure of anything. Like there's no job on the line, so that kind of
so you're able to hone your craft in a kind of risk-free environment.
Exactly, and it reintroduces like why you're doing this in the first place, right? Because if you don't love it, then like get out. There's too much rejection. There's too much disappointment. There's too much of like you finally book something, the role gets cut. You finally book something, and like your part's given to someone else. Like there's too much stuff that happens that sucks that you just have to keep coming back to the love of the craft and the love of why you act and why you want to tell someone else's story. And that kind of keeps me going because I know And I tell myself, I'm like, right now, there's someone out there writing the perfect role for me.
That's pretty great.
Like, just keep telling yourself that, because, like if I had quit years ago, it's like I wouldn't have been, introduced to Esther, who changed my life for sure. I mean, I probably 10 years from now will still be, oh yeah, that's Esther. I mean, that's what I'm known as. Even when I did Station 19, people were like, that's Esther. Like that's who that is.
That's cool.
So yeah, that helps, I think, for me just to keep going, that I know that there are stories waiting to be told that are perfect for me, even if this one is not.
I like that. I think in the face of like an overwhelmingly hard and trying industry, that level of positivity and foresight to like realize that like there is still more that I can do with this, and no matter get knocked down on my ass 9 times and get up 10, whatever it might be, that's a really, really great mental attitude, and I think something that is certainly not easy to come by any stretch of the imagination, for sure.
Right. Well, and someone said yes, so someone else will too. It just may take time.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, if you do something long enough and you're able to be successful at it, you're only one more person away from the dream role, the dream job, the dream, et cetera. For sure. Speaking of which, do you have like a dream project in mind, like a dream role, like whether it's like something reoccurring on a sitcom, like a movie role? Is there something that like your biggest dream to do as an actor? I mean, I feel like it's just cliche and, a silly question, but I am genuinely curious if you have something that you're like, that is the dream.
I'd love to be on a show regularly. My mom always jokes, she's like, I can't wait till we can watch you every night, or not every night, but every week.
Mm-hmm. Or binge,
I'm like,
right?
me too. Or binge and watch it, every night if you want. I mean, obviously like a lead in a movie would be great too, but I don't know, like right now I just would love to be on a show that I can work on regularly. I don't necessarily have a role that I like, I have to play this role. I just, like we kind of talked about, I just want to continue playing roles like I have, but that are deep, that mean something to me, that are someone's story that somebody is watching and is like, oh my God, that's my story. Or I get that even if it's something crazy, it's like there's part of the character that like, wow, I get that, that's me. And it is inspiring to people. That's kind of what I hope for eventually, or soon, hopefully sooner rather than later. But
yeah, how is like the last year with COVID, and obviously I would imagine there's been like a fair amount of slowdown or shutdown or delay in productions and whatnot. How is like the last year kind of impacted your working life, and do you see it picking up sooner than later? I mean, I know I'm in the New Jersey, New York City area, and things are starting to feel like it's almost normal. We're sort of kind of getting there, but how has that been for the last year for you? And, do you think things will start picking up in terms of like your ability to go to work more and audition more?
Yeah, I mean, I really think things are turning around, which is amazing for the industry. And just, it's funny because people joke about like our jobs not being important, but I'm like, what did you watch for the last year? Mm-hmm. TV or movies,
everything.
So
literally,
it's like I get it. We're not performing brain surgery. We're not like the top of the most important, like actual first responders and things like that are very important. But as far as just entertainment, which is important, which is the way that we survive through this hard life.
For sure.
I think a lot of times it's what we turn to in the Great Depression, with movies. But yeah, I mean, I think for what we call episodic season, which is like when the networks start their season again, a lot of them are obviously because of COVID. They didn't really get to start filming until much later than they normally would film. So they're not having full seasons. So this next season, which will start in July, as assuming all goes well, we'll have or August hopefully we'll have full seasons, and then there'll be a lot more opportunities for actors as well, and because of the vaccine and just mass all the stuff that we've figured out for the industry as far as like how to work safely. I think they'll be able to have more people on set, because I know at first they were very concerned and there was less roles, so that they had smaller casts, and which is definitely understandable. Mm-hmm. But now hopefully we'll be able to, you know, be more open as far as being able to have, you know, full shows and full seasons, and then work should pick up.
Nice.
Definitely for actors. Yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard. The last year was hard. Had to find other ways of being creative. I stayed in class on Zoom, which was, you know, an adjustment, but ended up being awesome and really, really enjoying it. Read a lot, you know, things like that, just trying to keep myself creative, and not go crazy.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned that, you know, through your work as an actor, you hope to inspire people, whether it be from a story that you're able to tell, a role you're able to bring to life, etc. What inspires you, you know, on a daily basis, in your work, in your life?
Ooh, that's a good question. What inspires me? I think seeing others work as well. Having, you know, the opportunity, especially last year, to catch up on a lot of shows that I had missed or just hadn't had time to watch, or, you know, for whatever reason I'd put off. But seeing just the amazing work that is happening in both movies and in TV is really inspiring to me. Watching others in class that are, you know, not famous actors, but are just incredibly talented is inspiring to me. Things like that, I think, that just inspire me to keep going, inspire me not to give up, just knowing the work is so fantastic, and that, you know, actors are just doing such great work, I think inspires me. And then just, you know, seeing people, I don't know, you know, people that I know that are doing amazing things not in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my father-in-law is a firefighter, EMT, and my brother-in-law is a nurse, and watching them and hearing their stories and is inspiring to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you have like a very positive and clear outlook on life, which is nice, and I would say well, it's nice. It's good to hear because, you know, this has been, for better or for worse, mostly the worst for a lot of people for the last 12 months. And it's been a dark time for people. It's been tough. And like you said, like a lot of consumption of media has transpired. And I think it's a good way to break people from, you know, the mundaneness and the heaviness of what's kind of transpired over the last year. And like you said, the real things that matter are, you know, your father-in-law and your cousin, you know, nurses, firefighters, police officers who are doing things, you know, on a daily basis that are actually, you know, making differences for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me about your relationship with your husband, because you guys have been married for, I think, probably like 11 or 12 years now. Does it help to have that support system at home, you know, for good days and bad days, to have someone that you have there that you can kind of rely on?
No, he's awful. No, just kidding. No, he's wonderful. I met him way before I was even doing really film and TV. He knew I was an actor. You know, I was doing theater at the time. And, you know, I kind of said to him, like, this is my life. So hop on or don't bother, you know, kind of thing. Like, nothing's going to change here. You know, when we got married, we had no plans to move. But, you know, things just started kind of moving that direction. I ended up signing with a manager. I came out here for a couple months to kind of see how things were going to be, if I even liked living out here. And then I went home and I was like, we got to move. And we moved like 2 months later. And he was just all in. He's been all in since the beginning.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's super supportive. You know, he's funny because he's just level-headed. He just is like, I'll be upset if I don't book something, because, you know, a lot of times the stuff I audition for is like super heavy, and so I get very attached.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I don't get it, it's hard. And he'll be like, do you think this is the last role you're ever going to audition for?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
very
no.
pragmatic.
Yeah, he's very just like, you know, like, he reminds me of like, this isn't, like, there's so much more to come. Like, stop freaking out about this one little thing, you know, that sometimes is not as great as I thought it was going to be, or whatever, you know, anyway. So he's just
great.
Constantly like reminding me to trust, and know that there is more. And yeah, he's not in the industry, so that
certainly helps. For sure.
Yeah, he's not also trying to do this. So he sees the industry from a different standpoint, and is able to be, like you said, a lot more pragmatic about it all.
Nice.
And doesn't have all the emotional involvement.
That's cool.
That I do.
Yeah, I've found, through my own risk taking that I've, done over the course of the last year, really just chasing my dream of being a photographer and starting this podcast, that if it weren't for the support that I have with my family and my friends, I wouldn't be doing any of these things. I would have gone back to getting a regular old 9 to 5, and I'd be probably just miserable, buying a bunch of shit to like fill up my house that I don't need. And I think that without the support of a loved one, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and or family or friends, it could be lonely and it could be difficult to make level-headed decisions on things on a daily basis. So it's always nice to hear when, someone who I obviously now consider a friend has like that really rock solid foundation of support at a close level. Like that's nice to hear for sure.
Yeah, and like someone that can just kind of talk you off the ledge a bit, as well. He's very supportive of everything comes out, and then he's also very supportive when on the other end, when there's disappointment and frustration, which, like you said, it's so important to have. Even not everyone is as blessed as us to have a supportive family. My parents are also like, I talk to my mom sometimes every day. If sometimes. If things are going a certain way,
5 times a day,
right? And she's just constantly like, you just have to keep trusting. You just have to keep trusting. But not everyone is fortunate enough to have that. So it's so important just to find someone in your life that will keep you from going off that deep end, and will keep you just your spirits up.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's great. In terms of like your industry, obviously, like it's comparable to any friends or family that I have. I don't really have anyone who works in the industry, where so much of what you do is kind of on like a daily, weekly basis, right? So like you can land a show that will, book you up for the next 5 years, or you could be on a show that's 2 weeks. How do you go about goal setting for a job that doesn't have like a definitive timeline for what it is you actually do?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that you can necessarily, like, you can't really be like, well, I'm going to be on a show in 5 years. I mean, you can put that as a goal, right? And you can work towards that goal, but you can't be disappointed if it doesn't happen in 5 years.
Right.
It's not the same as like, I'm going to, do this and you have control over it. This is one career that's tough because you don't necessarily have control over a lot of aspects of it, as far as what you audition for and what you book. You can give your representation things that you want to go out for, kinds of roles. My reps definitely know the kind of work I want to do, the kind of roles, but you don't obviously get a choice of whether you book them or not.
Right.
So yeah, it's tough to really say like, I'm going to do this and that. Or I feel like if you say like, people are like, oh, if I don't make it in 5 years, I'm going to leave. Well, it's like, you're probably going to leave. If you're going to follow through with your, that statement. I think it kind of, like I said before, it kind of takes as long as it takes. You have to just be willing to put in the work and stay in it. You can do there's definitely goals as far as like, okay, if you want a new agent or you want a new manager, or okay, now I want to audition for co-stars, or now I want to audition for guests, or now I want to audition for series regulars. You can have those goals. It's just hard to have goals as far as like what you're going to book, because you just don't know.
Sure.
Because it can take 5 years, it can take 10 years.
Yeah, I just find it to be like, for like me, from like everything that I do, whether it be photography or the podcast or whatever, it's like, I want to book this many episodes for the podcast. Like I can put like metrics on everything that I do, but in an industry where you're like booking and success rate and the longevity of that job is not really something that you're able to predetermine, I would imagine it's kind of hard for you to like judge what you would consider success or not. And I'm not saying you in general. I'm not saying you specifically. I mean, generally speaking, because if I were in your shoes and I'm putting my goals, I would imagine landing network television roles are getting crossed off.
Right, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that, that was a goal. I try not to put like a timeline on things. Like it has to be done by this year. I put it out there. Like, I put out in the universe. I did last year, which is funny, ironically, did my first vision board, and then 2020 happened. But I actually
don't do another one.
Yeah. Well, I carried over because, obviously a lot of things were not. But I did get to check off a few things. I did get to check. I wanted to work in the Grey's Anatomy universe, and I did with Station 19. And I wanted to book another guest star, and I did. So there were some things that, that I got to cross off, and I absolutely think you should put things out there. I want to do a series regular, so I'm going to put that out there. I want to do a recurring guest star. I'm going to put that out there. I just don't put like, it has to be done by this time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because then
when that time comes, you're like, well,
shit.
Now what? Like, yeah. I mean, certain things you can. Like, I'm going to go headshots by May. You can definitely put time on that. I'm going to update my reel by this date. Okay, you can do that. Those kind of things.
But it's not like I want to be the star of a major motion picture by 2021. I mean,
you can definitely write that down. You just have to be okay with like that it may not happen.
Yeah, it's like best laid plans, okay, for sure.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot better, and I think it's through more of these conversations that I have with people from, many different walks of life, of like trying to manifest the things that I want. And, it always felt like to me, like the yoga phrase, like manifest your reality and like build up whatever you want to have for yourself. But the more and more I start doing these sort of things where I'm like, listen, I want to start a podcast and I want to get this many downloads and I want to book this many guests and I want to photograph this many people and I want to shoot a campaign. The more I start putting this stuff like either on paper or out in the universe, it's starting to actually kind of come around and work. So I totally buy into what you're saying of like building a vision board, building like a path of what you want, because I'm starting to actually reap the rewards of me doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's better than doing nothing and just being like, well, my career goes as it goes, and I don't care what I do. I mean, and that's fine too if that's what people, want. But I think it's also good to have goals and have a vision for your career eventually. Like I said, I just try not to put like a time limit on it for me. Yeah. Because then I'm disappointed if it doesn't happen, or I feel like, I failed because it didn't happen by this time. It's like, no, this is my vision for my career. It just doesn't have to be. It may take as long as it takes to get there, and that's okay. And then I can work towards that vision as well. It's crazy. This, like, you said, kind of got to just be ready for anything. I booked Station 19 on a Monday, and I was on set Tuesday.
Wow.
SVU, I booked it on Thursday. I flew out Sunday. We started shooting Tuesday. I mean, you just always kind of have to be ready to go.
That's intense.
At any time. Now with COVID, it's a little different because they test and all that kind of stuff ahead of time, so they can't really like just have you on set the next day or that day.
Right.
But before, it was kind of like sometimes they were booking people the same day, if that's just as long as it took to find the right actor for the part.
That's wild.
So I'm kind of just like, when I audition for something, I look at the dates of filming, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to put a mental note that like at any moment I could be
called
flying out or need me on set or whatever. There's not a lot, film usually get more time, but TV moves very quickly, so you kind of just got to be ready for anything.
Nice. I've touched upon a lot in previous episodes, like regrets that I have in my life, and I try to say that I live my life without regret, right? But not many people are fortunate enough to kind of have that be the case. But like a lot of the regrets that I have are more centered around me delaying the process of me chasing dreams and things that I want to do. Obviously, it seems like you didn't really have much delay in chasing your dream. But in regards to regrets in your life, how do you take those instances where you're like, oh, maybe I really messed up that audition, or oh, I really wish I did this versus that? How do you like handle those instances of regret and kind of grow and move on from them?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, kind of the same as you, as far as like, I'd like to say that they say, you're going to regret the stuff that you didn't do versus the stuff that you did.
Mm-hmm.
When the time comes for your life. But yeah, I mean, I think I try to look at as, because I know from talking to a casting standpoint, as far as auditions and things like that, oftentimes we'll be like, oh, that was the worst audition and they did not see that. Then you get a call back or you book it. Mm-hmm. Or it's like did not go badly at all. Like it's just that's what you felt. So I try, honestly, that stuff doesn't super bother me that much because I try really hard. I'm like, okay, did I have fun? Yes. Did I do what I wanted? Yes. Then I was successful. Mm-hmm. And I can't control what they saw or didn't see or wanted or didn't want. If they want something different, they can give me a redirect or whatever. At the early stages, for sure, I didn't always do what I wanted to do because I was nervous and, actor insecurity and like trying to do what I thought they wanted, which never works because you'll never know what they want ever. So now I definitely am like, okay, I had fun, did what I want to do. That's all I can do. That's my best work.
Nice.
Yeah. So I don't really harbor any auditions I did like 4 or 5 years ago and still thinking, because I know casting does not remember. Yeah. Even if it didn't go well, because they all say, and I believe them, they are like, we don't remember bad auditions, we remember bad people.
Oh.
So like if you're rude, if you're, rude to the assistant or rude to the other people in the waiting room or just like disrespectful, it's like that's what they're going to remember, not like, oh, that you messed up 4 lines and it's like, yeah, in that moment they'd be like, oh, it might be like, oh, the actor's a little green, like maybe we'll wait a bit to call them in, but they're not going to be like, well, we're writing them off, so they're never getting cast again.
Yeah,
like,
right. I think that's that's a good lesson for life, because you get more, was it flies with honey than water or something like that,
or vinegar or whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, but it's good. Honestly, I feel like I spent a lot of time like as a younger person, like being really not knowledgeable about the impact of my actions. And what you said about whether you're rude to a casting director or their assistant or whatever, the way you handle yourself and the way you carry yourself and the way you treat people will have reverberations throughout your life, way beyond, like you said, forgetting a couple lines or doing a bad job and getting fired or whatever it might be. The way you handle things in your life is going to greatly inform your successes later on.
Absolutely, because producers, they'll say, when they're booking a series and they're like, do I want to work with this person for 12 hours a day for 8 months?
No.
No.
Not if they're a dick, for sure.
Right, exactly. So it doesn't matter maybe how great of an actor you are if you're not a person first and a kind person and someone they want to work with. It's like that's what they remember. Fucked up auditions, it's,
there's probably a lot of them.
I wouldn't harbor too much, because everyone has a bad day. We're human, we're not robots. Sometimes things just don't work out, it's like it just wasn't there. And like I said, we may think what we perceive as bad, and they were like, oh, she was great. We didn't see that at all, which goes back to, again, how we think our scene is going when the audience doesn't see that at all. Yeah. For me, it's more, which I'm starting to do more, which I wish I did more earlier. At the beginning, I was definitely more nervous to go anywhere, like travel for vacations, things like that, because I was so afraid of like, oh my God, that's going to be the week that I get an audition for the role that's going to change my life. Or I'm going to book something and I'm not going to be able to go on my vacation, because obviously like you're not going to turn down a great role for a vacation that you can reschedule or something. So I was very like nervous to go on stuff and now I'm like, whatever, like I'm going to miss and I'm going to regret the places I didn't see far more than the jobs I maybe or maybe wouldn't have gotten.
That's a really, really good point. And there is a statistic that I'm really good at giving fake numbers, but not the actual numbers. But there was a statistic that I read not too recently that was like Americans on average use like 30% of their vacation days. Like Americans just don't go on vacation for whatever reason. And it's because they're afraid to fall behind at work, or like, you know, in your industry, miss an audition, etc. And it's like, what are we like really, really afraid of? Because at the end of the day, like, we only have so much time here, and I would much rather spend a week on a beach than worrying about whether, you know, the TPS reports were done on time for Tuesday, March 7th. Like, it doesn't matter.
Right. And well, and now, like, with, you know, with the industry going self-tapes, it's like you can tape from anywhere. I've done it. I've taped from the hotel room. It doesn't, like, you can really just, you're not going to miss out on an opportunity. You can just do it there, and they'll understand you're in a hotel, or maybe they won't, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
because like, that's for them to worry about.
Right. At the end of our life, like, wow, I didn't see all these pieces because I was too worried about missing opportunities that never came. Yeah. Anyway. You know,
I've got a line that I've been stealing recently. It's like, we can spend hours and days worrying about the wreckage of the future, and all that's going to do is impact us from doing something now. And that's a terrible way to live a life.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I, you know, that's one thing I regret as far as, but I'm changing it now. Like, I think that's the thing, is like, regrets don't have to be things that you don't change. You know, you can change the way that you live your future. Because I can't change the past. I can't go on trips I didn't go on. You know, and I'll say, like, I never didn't go on something that was planned because I was too afraid. It was like, we just didn't plan stuff. And now it's like, I'm like, whatever, like, I'll just bring the ring light and the call. You know, it's like, if something comes up, I'll figure it out. Sure. You know, because otherwise you're going to sit at home and nothing's going to come through.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And you're not going to see anything or do anything either. I think obviously it's pretty clear you picked not the easiest job in the world. It's got its ups, it's got its downs. If you weren't an actor, what would you be doing for a living?
Ooh, that's good. That's good. I think maybe psychology, something with psychology.
Oh, nice. You should start a podcast.
I don't know anything. I mean, I never took any classes or anything in college because I went to, I majored in musical theater. So it was like basic math and history and nothing, you know.
It's funny because that would be my same choice. I like to consider myself like a dollar store psychologist. Like, throughout life, all my friends and family have always come to me for advice and stuff. And I'm like, fuck, I should have got that doctorate degree. I'd be charging you $300 for this hour right now.
And I'm like, and here's the invoice for the advice I dispensed.
I started doing that lately. I'll like Venmo request someone for $15 when they ask me for something.
You should. I should do that more. Because sometimes I spend way too much time helping others, which I love, but, you know. I find, and I guess this goes with acting, you know, humans very interesting. I love to sit and watch people, just find them fascinating. And so I think that would be something that would be interesting, is figuring out why people are the way they are, even if you never can figure it out, but you're like trying to figure it out.
I completely agree. Mind you, that this is the premise basically of why my podcast exists. So it's funny.
Well, there you go. And I don't know if we'll ever figure it out, but it's interesting to try.
I agree.
Try, you know, it's like the jokes about like murder podcasts can relax me.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah. Put me at ease.
The SNL like murder shows. I love that so much because it's true. It's like, why? You just all of a sudden one day, like, just kill 20 people. Like, what? You know?
Yeah. I completely agree. For sure. So I like to wrap up every podcast with a couple of rapid fire questions and then two big ones to kind of close things out. So my first.
I'm scared.
No, it's not that serious. For sure. What is your favorite book?
That's hard. So many.
You can give a few.
I mean, I'll go back. I'll give a few. I'll go back old school first and do To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, nice.
Classic. Let's see what else. I'll go more, I guess, modern, which would be one of my favorites. It's a book called A Monster Calls. I don't know if you've heard of it or read it. It was also made into a movie. Yeah, at least I did. I saw it. Because I don't cry that often in books. Shows, TV movies, I like shed tears at like Hallmark commercials. But books, I don't know, harder. And that one I just stopped. So that one, if anyone hasn't checked it out, then they should. So I'll go, and I love thrillers. I didn't mention any of those, but that's like one of my favorite book genres is thrillers. I love to be surprised, and like I try now when I'm reading not to figure out the twist because I really like to be surprised.
Sure.
So
it's like Gone Girl, right? Like that book, I was floored.
Oh, so good. That book was so good. Yeah.
What's your favorite movie and or movies? That might be a tough one for you.
Oh my God, I knew it. I knew you were gonna do it. Okay, so I'll say one that I just love, and it's kind of a weird one, but The Sixth Sense.
Oh, nice. Good choice.
I love that movie. I love horror movies. So and that one is just like so brilliantly done.
So
the acting and everything is just so good. That was that. Not that I watched every day because that would be probably disturbing, but
puts you in a good mood for a deep dark role.
And it's a good mood. Like, this explains so much about you, Rebekah. So yeah, I'll go with that one as one of my favorites. But it's hard. It's always hard to narrow down.
No, good choice for sure. What's your favorite food?
Gosh, these questions. I love all food. What is my favorite food?
Desert
probably
Island pasta. Nice. Good choice.
Probably any kind. But I really love all. You really just skip me anything.
You don't have to be discriminating when it comes to pasta. It's all carbs and delicious and cheese and
I know it's all bad.
All the good stuff.
So good. I don't even care.
For sure. Little bit heavier. Do you believe in an afterlife?
I do.
Good. I do as well. I like that. What is your biggest piece of advice for someone that is hearing you talk for the very first time on the podcast today?
Well, if you're an actor or you're not an actor, and whatever you choose to do in your life, do not give up. I know it's cliche, like everyone says that, but I think that whatever you want to do, if you love it and you can't imagine your life without it, then you have to keep going towards it.
I like that. I mean, I don't think it's not cliche when it's true, right? Like at the end of the day, you can't be afraid to keep going for the thing that you want. And if you work hard enough at something and you really, really put your effort into it, good things will happen. So I don't think
I agree.
It may be cliche, but I think it's fine. I like it.
I agree. And I think, you talked about success, and that's going to be different for everyone. And maybe your success won't be what you imagined it to be. Maybe you're not going to be Tom Cruise living on an island or something. But I think, like you said, if you love it and you work hard at it and you consistently go after it, that you will succeed.
Mm-hmm. It just might not look like what you thought it was going to.
Exactly. But I don't think that if you go for something for years and years and years, and you try your hardest and you work at it, it's not just kind of work at it, but actually work at it, then you're not going to have any movement. I think everyone will. I think people that don't, it's because they gave up.
I think that's a very, very positive mental outlook, and one that more people need to share, for sure. My last question for you is, what is one recommendation that you have for everyone listening today? It can be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be a movie, a TV show, literally anything, just something that you've kind of consumed lately that you would like everyone to check out.
Does that have to be new? Like something just
No, it doesn't have to be new.
Well, this is Handmaid's Tale.
Oh,
yeah. I haven't watched that.
I didn't watch it today.
I'm still catching up. So I didn't have Hulu for a long time, and so then once I got it, I kind of put the show off because I knew it was so heavy. And I was like, do I want, even though I play all these heavy roles and I watch a lot of heavy stuff, sometimes I'm like, do I?
It's so good.
It's so good. The acting is just brilliant. I don't know. It's like that show I would just love to be on in any capacity at some point.
That'd be awesome.
Probably won't happen, but
I would freak out if I saw you on that show. I would freak. It's so good. I mean, I forget so what the what's the main actress's name?
Elizabeth Moss.
Elizabeth Moss. She is just incredible. I mean, from Mad Men to this, like every movie she's ever starred in, every episode of every TV show, like I don't think she's ever been bad in anything.
No, not that I've ever seen. I mean, she was great in Invisible Man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. That was so good too.
Material. I feel like that way about Elizabeth Olsen too. Like, I just feel like they elevate the material.
Elizabeth Olsen is
Handmaid's Tale is like written so great, but
yeah, Elizabeth Olsen is like dream human being. She seems.
Did you watch Sorry for Your Loss?
No, what's that?
So it didn't get renewed, so I think it had 2 seasons, which is really disappointing. But it's a Facebook Watch show, so I'll give a second recommendation.
Nice.
It's free on Facebook. It's a series about her losing her husband, and she is just brilliant in it. The show is great. It's another recommendation. Not a light, fluffy show, obviously, but if you're in a dark mood, just the acting is wonderful as well, and she's great in it, and I highly recommend that show.
I'll definitely check that out. I love her. She, Kodachrome on Netflix, which stars her, Ed Harris, and Jason Sudeikis. Not sure if you've seen it. One of my favorite movies.
I don't think I have.
Big recommendation. I've got it saved on my list, and I usually like knock stuff off my list as I watch them, but I watch that movie all the time. I mean, Ed Harris plays like kind of a jerk / he's a photographer, so he's kind of like me if I ever became an asshole or more of an asshole. And Elizabeth Olsen's in it, and she's just incredible. I mean, I consume all of the Marvel movies a million times, but she just plays such like a genuinely sweet, awesome character on that movie, and gotta love Sudeikis, and it's just so good. Go watch it. That's my recommendation.
Oh yeah, it's on Netflix. Okay, I will.
Yeah, definitely.
I missed that one.
So good.
Sometimes movies just kind of fly under.
Yeah, you know what the thing was? I don't know when that came out. Whether it was a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it came out, they did no like publicity for it, and I think the only reason why it was recommended to me is because I've watched so many photography documentaries on Netflix that they're like, oh, you might like this, and I loved it. It was great. I love that they're like, I love that that's what came up. Yeah, it's so good. You'll like it. You'll like it. If not, your money back, but it's $0, so no Venmo request.
So I will be Venmoing you for $20 of my time.
The other recommendation that I have, and this is also not a new movie, was The End of the Tour with Jason Segel and Jesse Eisenberg. I'm going to forget the name of the writer that Segel plays. I forget the name of who he portrays, but just a really, it's an A24 movie. They do no wrong. It's on Hulu. It's 2 or 3 years old. It's short. It's sweet. Segel and Eisenberg are just wonderful in the movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one either. These are two.
You're welcome.
I have to check out.
I told you, I literally watch everything.
You do? Wow.
For sure.
Yeah, I missed this one as well. I know it's hard when they do like zero press, really. Mm-hmm. And then like you might see a thing go by and you're like, I don't know what that is, and so you don't watch it.
Yeah.
And then you miss some good movies. So.
For sure. Well, check them both out, and you can thank me anytime. Just kidding. But Rebekah, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with me today. I had so much fun with our chat. I've got a funny little riddle or whatever you want to call it. Anyone who comes on this podcast is family with me now. So your family, welcome. Glad to have you.
Awesome.
So very appreciative of your time today. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I look forward to being on here again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Can't wait to do it again.
Thanks.
Take care.